Well, I went to a movie theater. I had to think long and hard about it, but I'm pretty sure the last movie I saw in a movie theater was the latest Star Wars turd. Not the best note to go out on. Don't worry, I practiced all my COVID safety precaution. A friend of mine essentially rented out a theater that could only be filled to like 30% capacity or something. Everyone was wearing a mask, we social distanced, all that good stuff. I just realized I should have taken B-roll of the empty, insanely bougie mall that the theater was in to put in here, but I obviously didn't. It went off without a hitch anyway. I did take this one picture. So first, I was actually surprised by 2 trailers. I really miss that, being surprised by trailers. I don't really watch them anymore unless they're for something super special to me. In fact, I hadn't seen the trailer for Tenet going into this viewing, not even unintentionally. Given the current state of the flaming turd we're currently calling planet Earth, not many new trailers are coming out anyway, but I think I'm going to adopt this no trailers except in the theater policy if society ever resembles itself again. Judas and the Black Messiah was the first awesome trailer I saw. Ryan Coogler's producing, Daniel Kaluuya, Lakeith Stanfield acting, that creepy guy from Breaking Bad, Jesse Plemons. Apparently, the director, Shaka King, did 4 episodes of Shrill, the Hulu A.D. Bryant show. I haven't seen that, but I like her a lot. She's very charming. Also, Dune. I hadn't seen any of what Denis Villeneuve was going for, but holy, oh my god, it looks so pretty. I've never read the Dune books, and may never, but the story seems right up my alley. I was just listening to this new podcast called Investigate Joe Rogan. This is a complete side note, by the way. The host had a very funny revelation when he was investigating an episode of Joe Rogan that featured Alex Jones, and he realized that Alex Jones seems to have internalized a lot of ideas from the novel series Dune and taken them as fact or like incorporated them into his worldview. And I already knew this because I'm a lunatic and I've listened to every single episode of Knowledge Fight, one of my favorite podcasts. I highly recommend it. That's a show about Alex Jones, and that's something that they've gone over extensively, how Alex Jones gets a lot of his weird ideas about like race memory and whatnot from the novel series Dune, probably, and maybe doesn't even remember that that's where he got it from.
I think Alex Jones's thinking has been heavily influenced by the book Dune. There is real reason to think this, so hold on. In this episode, he talks about race memories, and he says that he thinks people are a sort of colony of all their ancestors, and that you can access these memories, and that he has done so in dreams. This is a big part of Dune, especially the later Dune books. He also talks about psychedelic drugs being connected to advanced technology. He says that he has seen the future in dreams. These are also big things in Dune. Now, I get that Dune is not the only source of these sorts of ideas. However, in the first Alex Jones episode, he mentions Giedi Prime, which is a planet in Dune. So he has definitely read Dune. Giedi Prime isn't something like Tatooine, where a rando who has never seen Star Wars would still know about Tatooine from popular culture. Dune isn't that big. If you know about Giedi Prime, you're into Dune. Or that one Grimes album that's called Giedi Primes. But I highly doubt Alex Jones listens to Grimes. So I think he has definitely read Dune. And I think he is getting some of these ideas from Dune. And I really can't blame him. Dune is really cool, so it's understandable if you let it influence your thinking about politics and the universe a little bit too much.
Annie Honey Bundle, that had nothing to do with anything, but, you know, I just saw the Dune trailer, so those two things kind of converged in a weird way. Now for the actual movie that I'm supposed to be reviewing. I don't remember anything about the movie, actually. It was very nice to get out of the house and go to a place and see people, real human faces in the flesh, but the movie was pretty meh, honestly. I loved the main actor in The Black Klansman, John David Washington, Denzel's kid. Interesting because they have fairly different energy from one another, like very different screen presence, but now I'm wondering if he's actually a good actor or not, or if that was just a good role for him in Black Klansman. Pretty flat in this one. But all in all, the acting wasn't bad, especially considering how one-dimensional the characters are most of the time. That's to be expected in a Chris Nolan movie. It goes without saying, to the point of almost being a cliche, that Nolan isn't great at rendering multi-dimensional characters. He's not great at showing humans talking to each other about human stuff. But we look past that because his movies are gorgeous, compelling, and ambitious in enough other ways to make them worthwhile, right? I'm not so sure that was the case with this one. One thing that didn't occur to my dumb male brain while watching this film was how hard this criticism applies to the movie's handful of female characters. This is also a point that's been brought up about Nolan's other work. One of the main characters, whose name I can't remember, or maybe never even knew, is the wife of the film's main antagonist. There isn't really much to say about her, which is kind of the problem. Her whole character is basically that her husband is abusive. Maybe I'll insert my girlfriend's thoughts because she had a little bit more insight on this after we saw the movie because, you know, she's a lady, so she pays more attention to that stuff, which I guess I should too. Just because I'm a guy doesn't give me an excuse.
Maybe I'm just not used to seeing these types of movies anymore or as much, but I thought the main female character felt like a prop. And it was frustrating to watch because it kind of felt like her only purpose was to be like a victim. Yeah. I mean, I think I was getting really mad about it because there was maybe perhaps an effort to make her seem like an empowering character because she's, you know, is a victim or survivor of domestic violence. I think in the beginning, I thought her character was like intriguing and there was a lot of stuff they could do with it, but she was very victimized throughout the whole thing. And it felt like a man's version of what they think domestic violence looks like or is. The other part that bothered me was her whole drive for staying with this abuser was her kid. It just felt like woman, victim, who the main thing about her personality is that she cares for her child. So I don't know, to me it just felt very two-dimensional and objectified in a non-sexual sense. And I'm obviously like kind of being a little extra about this, like it wasn't, I don't think it was near as obvious as I'm making it out to be, but as I was watching the movie, she became a more involved character and not seeing any development there and not seeing her really contribute to the plot in any meaningful way, as in she was just something for the main character to save, and it was just kind of disappointing. So I went in with like zero expectations, except that it was a Christopher Nolan movie, but I wasn't expecting to like look at it through a quote-unquote feminist lens. But when you give me a woman and the only thing about her that's like meaningful in any way is that she's a possible love interest, B, a victim of domestic violence, and C, loves her son, it just is very flat.
And what image would you like me to use to keep your identity a secret?
I do fancy in the cowboy hat.
Okay.
Anyway, like I said, I didn't watch the trailer for this movie before seeing it. I heard teeny tiny tidbits about the movie having something to do with time or time travel and being really confusing and obtuse, alongside murmurs that the film as a whole was fairly mid, for a Chris Nolan film anyway. It's a time travel movie, sort of. It's a time travel movie with none of the stuff I personally get excited about when I learn I'm about to experience a time travel story, if that makes sense. But that's totally fine if the story is good. I won't explain it here for two reasons, though. This is supposed to be a spoiler-free review, and I didn't understand the movie. That's not an easy thing for me to admit. I really tried. I knew it was going to be long and confusing, and I was determined to make the most of my first time seeing it. So I drank lots of coffee and saw the movie at 3 in the afternoon. Also had a big old cola in the theater. Totally caffeinated. And my eyes still started getting heavy about halfway through. One thing that's, I guess, my fault is that I've gotten really used to watching movies with subtitles. I have pretty bad ADD and subtitles help me pay attention. Plus, I have pretty bad hearing from years of being a musician, regular concert goer, and generally irresponsible person. For the past few years, I've only gone to the theater to see big blockbusters, which generally don't suffer from a lack of subtitles, which I guess is why they do well in foreign markets. Like, you don't have to really grasp a lot of nuances to enjoy Transformers 7 or whatever. Maybe that's why I didn't enjoy Us as much as I wanted to. Anywho, some level of confusion and suspension of disbelief / nitpicking is always required of any time travel movie, but this one really tested my ability to look past the fact that time travel has inherent paradoxes that are never going to make sense. The main time travel conceit or premise of the movie is really interesting, and it made for some great action scenes. That said, it seems like they really held back with how interesting the main thing that I'm not going to explain right now could have been. Just a couple more things to get to before for the moment you've all anticipated. I won't give anything away, but at one point a character is threatened by another character, and a third character is like, "No!" And my response was, wait, he cares that much about that character? There are quite a few moments like that, as well as several where I could tell I was supposed to be like, "No, schniznals," but nothing really ever elicited that reaction from me, which isn't great. Let's see. At one point, we get a very unhelpful, ham-fisted explanation of the grandfather paradox. This might be one of those instances in which the explanation was actually necessary for general audiences, but I'm a big sci-fi fan, so I found it superfluous and a little annoying, honestly, but that may be unjustified on my part. That's also one of my only quibbles with the best show I've seen in a long, long time, the great Alex Garland's Devs. There are some points at which the narrative completely pauses to explain stuff that I've already heard explained 1,000 times in many different ways, but in that case, the scientific principles explained are pretty essential to understanding the story. Watch Devs. It's on Hulu, and it's the greatest. And I probably just thought that stuff was ham-fisted because, I've read the Carl Sagan books and watched the Cosmoses and read the Neil deGrasse Tyson books and watched all the Discovery Channel blah, blah, blah space stuff and, cool mind-bending science stuff. So that might not be something everybody knows about. Devs really is the greatest, though. Alex Garland is such a king. And that's pretty much all I have to say. The big Chris Nolan practical set piece was underwhelming, to say the least. It was really long, difficult to understand, flat characters, one of whom I think was portrayed in an arguably pretty sexist way. Definitely my least favorite Nolan movie. I'll probably never rewatch it, but if I do, I think it's one of those that maybe I'll like a little bit more. But does Hoss recommend? I mean, obviously not. If you're a big Nolan head, a Chris freak, if you will, you've probably already seen it, and you're going to call me dumb in the comments, which is well-deserved. I say it isn't worth the COVID risk. Wait till it comes out on streaming or whatever. I'd say I give it 4 out of 10 fancies. 4 out of 10 fancies. It'd maybe be a 5 or 6 out of 10 if I didn't have higher expectations for Nolan than most other directors. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like if you liked, dislike if you disliked, hit the little bell, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Hoss_Bossman. Also, that's my Patreon. You can support me at patreon.com/Hoss_Bossman. Even if you hated this video, the least you can do is subscribe. I mean, I'm a nice guy. Help me out. God knows I need it. Oh, and make sure you listen to my podcast, Breadsheet, available on all podcasting apps. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. I sincerely appreciate your eyeballs. Please like and share this video, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, hit the little bell thingy. For the record, I really did enjoy going to see a big, beautiful, cerebral blockbuster in a proper movie theater. It might actually be worth the COVID risk for you. I loved the visuals. Apparently, a lot of Tenet was shot on location in various exotic places, and you can really tell. The score is also top-notch. Apparently, Hans Zimmer sat this one out to do Dune, actually. Ludwig Göransson, who I believe scored Black Panther, did this one. Great job there. John David Washington is real easy on the eyes, and Robert Pattinson is great, per usually. As my totally real girlfriend alluded to, I think a big reason this movie may have fallen flat for us is that neither of us are familiar at all with the spy genre, and I think Nolan was playing with some of those tropes here. Like, neither of us have ever seen a single James Bond, Mission Impossible, Jason Bourne, etc. movie. And you may have noticed that I was far less negative on this film than the title and thumbnail suggest. I figured that'd get more clicks. Sorry. If you hate me, sound off in the comments, he said transparently. But I really am trying to grow this channel. Next video is going to be a critical thinking, media literacy sort of thing, more in line with what my amazing podcast, Breadsheet, has been about. That is promoting leftist politics. Listen to Breadsheet on your podcast app of choice. Go to www.hoss.fun for my wide variety of stuff. Hopefully the SSL certificate issue is resolved there. I also have serious music. That's the KMAX, the K-MACKS on iTunes and Spotify and Bandcamp and whatnot. And that's another way to support me. Go check that stuff out. Buy an album. Oh, and I also have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/Hoss_Bossman. Hoss_Bossman, that's me on Instagram, Twitter, and like I said, Patreon. I really need money.